Good morning class 12 students. So this is your subject physics, chapter number 10, that is wave optics, and this is the lecture number 2 of the chapter number 10. Okay. So in the last lecture we were doing the reflection on the basis of wave theory. So today we'll be starting with refraction on the basis of wave theory. Okay, so this is the topic, refraction on the basis of wave theory. Okay. So first of all, understand this diagram. Again, this is your plane mirror, and these two are the incident rays which are falling on this plane mirror. Okay. So now again, as this is a these are the parallel rays of light. So therefore, as you know, for a parallel rays of light, you have a plane wavefront. So this is the incident wavefront on this plane mirror. So AB is the incident wavefront. Now we are considering this medium to be rare, having a refractive index of mu1, and this medium to be denser, having a refractive index of mu2. Now C1 we are considering to be the velocity of light in this medium, and C2 the velocity of light in this medium. Okay, so now because the light rays are going from rare to denser medium, so you know it will bend towards normal. So I have drawn two normal lines here. So this ray will bend towards normal like this, and this ray will also bend towards normal like this. Okay, so now clearly understand this. See, when this A point strike this surface, it will be traveling in second medium, but this point at that time is in the same medium, which is the rare medium. That means these particles or this wave will travel a larger distance in the same time as compared to this, because this is the denser medium. So in the time, let us suppose we are taking time t. Okay, so in the time t, if this point B is reaching to A dash, then this point A will be reaching to B dash only, which will be smaller as compared to BA dash, because this is the denser medium, and as you know, in denser medium the speed of the particles becomes smaller. So therefore it will be traveling a less distance here, but it will be traveling a much larger distance in the rarer medium. Okay, so now when this point will reach to this point in time t, and when B will reach to A dash in time t, now when you will join them, you will get the refracted wavefront. So this is your refracted wavefront. Okay, so AB is the incident wavefront, and your A dash B dash is the refracted wavefront. Okay, so now you know the angle between incident ray and the normal ray is called angle of incidence, and the angle between refracted ray and normal ray is called angle of reflection. Okay, now one more thing, you know that light rays are always perpendicular to wavefront. That means this whole angle is 90 degree. Now if this is 90 and this is I, this will be 90 minus I, right? And this angle is also 90. This angle is 90 minus I, that means this will also be angle of incidence, right? Similarly here, this is R, right? Now this is again 90 degrees, so this will be 90 minus R, and again this is 90, so we will be left with R here. So this will be the angle of incidence, and this will be the angle of refraction. Okay, so now if you want to calculate BA dash, that is this distance is nothing but speed into time, and speed in the rarer medium is C1. So BA dash will be speed, that is C1, and time we are taking to be t. So BA dash will be equal to C1t, and AB dash will be equal to C2 into t. Okay, so I hope it is clear. We have two velocities of light, one in the rarer medium and second in the denser medium. So now by using this, we will be proving the Snell's law, which is very important for the law of for refraction, and you have studied that as well. Okay, so first of all, let us calculate sine I. Okay, so sine I will be perpendicular upon hypotenuse. So perpendicular is A dash B and hypotenuse is A dash AA dash. Similarly, calculate sine R, that will also be AB dash upon AA dash. So by putting those values, sine I will be A dash B upon AA dash, and sine R will be AB dash upon AA dash. Now as you have calculated here, A dash B is nothing but C1t and AB dash is nothing but C2t. Now divide these two equations, that is sine I by sine R. When you will divide them, this AA dash will get cancelled out. So you will be left with C1t upon C2t, or you can say sine I by sine R will come to be C1 upon C2. Now by the definition of refractive index. So as you know, refractive index is defined as the velocity of light or the speed of light in vacuum to the speed of light in any medium. So mu1 is defined as speed of light in vacuum, that is c, upon speed of light in that medium, that is c1. Similarly, mu2 is defined as speed of light in vacuum to the speed of light in medium. So now if you again divide them, mu2 by mu1 will come to be c2 by c1. So just put value of this here. This will come to be c1 by c2. Okay. So when you will put it here, so you will get the Snell's law, that is sin I by sin r is equals to mu2 by mu1, which is nothing but Snell's law, or you can say first law of refraction. And the second law is itself clear from the diagram, that incident rays normal to your plane and the refracted rays all lie in the same plane, and which is second law of refraction. Okay, so now let us discuss about the shape of wavefront while the rays pass through a prism, through a convex lens and through a concave mirror. Okay, so first of all let us take up prism. Okay, so now we are again supposing this is the rarer medium outside the prism and this is the denser medium. The speed of light in rarer medium is c1 and speed of light in denser medium is c2, and this is your prism ABC. Now let us say these are the incident lights on the face AB of this prism. Okay. Now again for the parallel rays you will be having a plane wavefront. So you can say DB is nothing but a plane wavefront which is incident on this prism. Okay. So now clearly understand here, see, if we consider about this point is still traveling in the medium rarer medium, right? But this point at the same time will have to travel through the denser medium of prism. So can you tell which point or which ray will be going faster? Obviously this point will be traveling more distance as compared to this, because this is in the this is in the rarer medium and this is the denser medium. And one more thing, different parts of this wavefront have to travel different thickness of the prism. This part of the wavefront has to travel a very large thickness of prism, whereas this part of the wavefront has to travel almost negligible thickness of the prism. Okay, so now if you consider at any instant this to be your wavefront, then if we say in time t, if this point is reaching from B to C, that is if the wavefront is traveling from B to C, this part of the wavefront, then in the same time this part will be traveling to this much distance, that is it will be traveling to this much distance because it is in rarer medium, so the speed will be larger for the light. Okay, so now again this point has reached here in time t and this point has reached here in time t. Again if you will draw a wavefront here, you will get this plane wavefront, and if you will draw the rays, then these will be the rays. So you can clearly see here that after passing through a prism, the rays always bend towards base of the prism. So as you can see, they are bending towards this base of the prism, and also your refracted wavefront is also your refracted wavefront is also a plane wavefront. Okay, so the time in going from D to A to D dash, that is this time will be equal to the time in going from B to C, and I hope the reason is clear why is it happening. Okay, so now if you want to write exactly the time, you know the time is defined as distance upon speed. So this distance will be dA plus AD dash, and speed of the light in the rarer medium is C1. That will be equal to BC upon C2. Okay, so you can say after refraction through a prism, the plane wavefront remains a plane wavefront only. Now let us discuss the behavior of a lens. Okay, so discuss the behavior of a convex lens. Again, let us suppose these three are the incident rays which are incident on this lens. So again, because these rays are parallel, so you will get a plane wavefront AB. Okay, so consider this point when this wavefront will reach here. So I am denoting midpoint by AC. Okay, so this wavefront has reached here. Now if you see clearly, again different parts of wavefront have to travel through different thickness of this lens. this part of wavefront has to travel a maximum thickness of the lens, whereas this part has to travel a negligible thickness of the lens. So again there will be change in the speed of light. Okay, so again let us take the time t. In time t, let us suppose this part of the wavefront has reached here, that is the C point has reached to C dash. Now because this is the denser medium and this is the rarer medium, that means if this distance is this much, this point will be traveling a larger distance because this is in the rarer medium, or you can say because this has to travel a very less thickness of the lens. So in the meantime, from when the C has reached to C dash, the A will be reaching, this A point will be reaching to A dash. Now as you can clearly see, C dash is less as compared to A dash, and similarly this point will also be traveling same distance as this one because they have to travel same thickness, right? So we have got these 3 points, A dash, C dash and B dash, after getting refracted from this convex lens. Now if you draw a wavefront, so connecting these 3 points, that is A dash, C dash and B dash, you will get such type of wavefront. And as you can clearly see, this is a converging spherical wavefront. Okay, so now if you want to draw the rays now, that is the reflected rays. So as you know, we will be using the property here that the rays are always perpendicular to the wavefront. So to draw perpendicular rays, you have to draw this ray like this. This will be perpendicular to wavefront. Similarly, this ray will also be perpendicular to wavefront and this will be passing straight only. So, and as you know this already, that your convex lens behaves as a converging lens. So this is also proved here. So you can conclude that after refraction through a convex lens, the plane wavefront gets converted to converging spherical wavefront. Okay, and one more thing, the time is same, so that, and time is distance upon speed, that is A dash upon C1 will be equal to BB dash upon C1, and let us consider speed of light in this medium is C2, so that will be equal to CC dash upon C2, that is the time traveled for all the distances will remain same. Okay. Similarly, we will discuss the last case, that is for a concave mirror. Okay. Again, look at this diagram. Again, we are considering the parallel rays. So we have a plane wavefront AB, right? Now again, these parts of the wavefront will be striking the mirror first, but this part of the wavefront will be striking the mirror after some time. As you can see, some gap is left here. So let us suppose at any instant when this point or this part of wavefront strikes the mirror, after getting reflected, it reaches to A dash and this point reaches to B dash. Obviously these two distances will be same because they are striking the mirror at same time. But this point will be traveling a little distance and then it will be striking the mirror. So that means it will be traveling obviously a smaller distance when it will get reflected in the same time that we are considering for this. So when it will be going here, it will be coming like this. Okay, so obviously as you can see, A dash is smaller than this distance. Okay, now if you again draw the wavefront using these 3 points, that is A dash, B dash and C dash, these are the reflected points. So you will again be getting such type of wavefront. Right, now again we will be using the property that rays are perpendicular to wavefront. So to draw a perpendicular here, this will be the ray and this will be again the ray and this will be the straight ray. So these are all perpendicular to the wavefront. So again, as you can see, these are the converging rays. So this will also be a converging spherical wavefront. So again, after reflection through a concave mirror, the reflected wavefront will be a converging spherical wavefront. Okay, so again, as the time is same, so you can say A dash upon C1 will be equal to BB dash upon C1 and this will be equal to C dash C plus CP, this whole distance upon C1, because now all the parts of wavefront are in same medium. So that will be, the velocity of light or the speed of light will remain C1 only for this case. Okay, so to summarize all the things, after passing through a prism, your plane wavefront remains the plane wavefront, but after passing through a convex lens, your plane wavefront gets converted to a converging spherical wavefront after refraction, and after passing through a concave mirror, your plane wavefront again gets converted to a converging spherical wavefront after reflection. Okay, so the next topic is superposition principle for waves. Okay, so it states when two or more waves superimpose on each other, then resultant displacement is equal to vector sum of displacements of individual waves. That is, when two or more waves fall on each other, then if you want to calculate resultant displacement, then it will be equal to vector sum of all the individual displacements. Okay, for example, look here. In this, suppose this is the wave y1, or you can say this is the wave which has an amplitude y1. Okay, another wave is this, that is this light dotted wave which is having an amplitude of y2. So as you can see, the crest of one wave is falling on crest of other. So crest is nothing but maximum amplitude. Okay, and here trough of one wave is falling on trough of another. So when you will add them, or you can say when you will do the vector sum, the resultant will be equal to y, that will be equal to y1 plus y2. So the resultant, that is this dark dotted line, is shown by resultant. So this will be the resultant amplitude for both the waves. Okay, now let us take a second case. In this case, this is the wave which has an amplitude y1, this solid line. This light dotted line is a wave which has an amplitude of y2, but as you can see, they are in opposite directions. So when you will do vector sum, then resultant will come to be y1 minus y2. So because y1 is larger, when you will subtract something from it, the resultant will become smaller. So this is dark dotted line is your resultant wave with amplitude y. So this is nothing but superposition principle for waves. Okay, so now we'll be studying two main topics of this your wave optics, which are interference and diffraction. And before that, we should know what are coherent sources. Okay, so before studying interference of light, we will be studying about coherent sources. Okay, so first of all, the question is, what do we mean by coherent sources? So the sources of light which emits continuous light waves of same wavelength, same frequency, and same same phase, or having a constant phase difference, are called coherent sources. That is, the coherent sources of light are those which will be emitting some light waves, and those light waves should have same wavelength, they should have same frequency, and they should be in same phase, or they must have a constant phase difference. Okay, and what is phase? That I have already told you. So let us suppose we want two coherent sources. Okay, so there are some conditions for obtaining two coherent sources of light. So the one and the most important condition is that two coherent sources of the light must be obtained from a single source only. That is, first of all, we will be having a single source. From that, we will be making two coherent sources. That is, two coherent sources of light must be obtained from a single source. Okay, so this point also means that two independent sources of light cannot be coherent, because only a single source will give you two coherent sources. Okay, so the question arises, why two independent sources of light cannot be coherent? So the reason is that, see, the smallest source of light will contain many atoms, as you know. So if you are taking two individual sources of light, initially they will be having billions of atoms, obviously, which cannot emit light waves in same phase. But our condition to obtain coherent sources is that the light wave should have constant phase difference, or they should be in same phase. So therefore, two independent sources of light cannot be coherent, because they will be because light waves through them will be having billions of atoms, which will obviously not be in same phase. So therefore, two coherent sources of light must be obtained from a single source. Second point is that second point is that two sources, these two coherent sources I am talking about, these two coherent sources should give monochromatic light, and by monochromatic you mean single color. Okay, so that means the two coherent sources should emit monochromatic light, or you can say a single color light. Okay, Third point is that path difference between the light waves from the two coherent sources should be small. Okay, so see, light waves will be traveling some path to reach a particular point. So from those two coherent sources, the path difference between those light waves should be small. Okay, so this is because if there is suppose a very large path difference, then what will happen? Then there will be intermixing of waves and you will be getting a uniform illumination. Okay, that is, if we are having a larger path difference, then there will be intermixing of waves, and we do not want intermixing of waves. So therefore we are considering path difference between the light waves from the two coherent sources to be small. So this is all about coherent sources. In tomorrow's lecture, we will be starting with interference of light, and after that we will be moving to diffraction of light. Okay, so for today you can go through the lecture properly. Thank you.